Tonight, protests in Tel Aviv over the mistaken identity deaths of 3 Israeli hostages. Also tonight, an eye in the sky to try and prevent industrial fires in Melbourne. A win for Prince Harry in his court battle with the British tabloids. And Australia's bowlers take control of the first test against Pakistan. Good evening, Iskhander Razak with ABC News. Israeli troops have shot and killed 3 hostages in Gaza in what military leaders admit was a tragic case of mistaken identity. The men were kidnapped by Hamas during the October 7 raids, but when found, were fired upon by Israeli soldiers. Their deaths have prompted protests and a pledge from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to bring the remaining hostages home safely.
They were meant to be rescued, but in the fog of war, there's a lot of room for error. The Israeli army says it shot and killed Alon Shamriz, Yotam Haim and Samar Talalka while fighting in central Gaza, mistaking them as threats.
We believe that the 3 Israelis either fled or were abandoned by the terrorists who held them captive.
Just last night, the mother of one of those killed still held hope at a vigil for hostages.
We yearned for a miracle, hoping that the hostages would be back for Hanukkah.
As the country learned of the news, hundreds took to the streets to express their anger. Protesters have been pressuring Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to prioritise the captives and pay any price for their release. The US, which has been critical of Israel's conduct, sent its national security advisor to the region.
We will continue to reiterate both publicly and privately our commitment to the notion that every innocent life should be sacred and should be protected.
Wael Dardou is a journalist and civilian wounded during an attack in Khan Yunis. He had lost his wife, son, daughter and grandson last month to an Israeli airstrike.
Something big exploded and knocked me to the ground.
His cameraman did not survive. Samar Abu Dakha is the 64th media worker to be killed during this war. Patients continue to stream in as Israel shelled Gaza's southern region from the air and sea. An estimated 19,000 Palestinians have been killed during the conflict so far. The UN says 70% of them are women and children. Majdi Sharab lost 2 of his teenage boys in an airstrike. He tried for an ambulance, but it couldn't come due to Israeli threats.
They went to save the neighbours in the street after a shell hit them, and then another shell hit them.
A father forced too soon to farewell his children. Alison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The conflict is escalating beyond the borders of Israel and Gaza, with 2 of the world's largest shipping companies suspending all journeys through the Red Sea. The Danish company Maersk made the decision after 2 commercial cargo ships came under attack from Yemen's Houthi rebels. The Iranian-backed rebels claimed the ships were heading to Israel and failed to respond to earlier naval calls. The German transport company Hapag-Lloyd is also pausing its Red Sea operations. The United States says the Houthi attacks pose a threat to freedom of navigation and global trade.
While the Houthis are pulling the trigger, so to speak, they're being handed the gun by Iran. And Iran has a responsibility to cease these attacks because these attacks, as I said before, are a fundamental threat to international law and to international peace and security.
An Israeli man has been hailed as a hero for stopping a deadly shooting in Jerusalem, but his bravery cost him his life. Since the Hamas attacks on October 7, the government has pushed the message that guns save lives. But arming civilians to respond to emergencies carries its own risks.
It's an all too familiar sight in Israel, a family in mourning. Yuval was my firstborn. I was very proud of him.
Moshe's son was killed during a Hamas terrorist attack at a bus stop in Jerusalem late last month. 2 Palestinian militants opened fire, killing 3 Israelis. Yuval, a former Israeli border policeman, ran across the road and shot the attackers.
He stopped his car, got out, crossed 4 lanes and charged, pulling out his gun in the direction of the terrorists.
But then soldiers mistook him for an assailant.
He first shouted at them. He raised his hands, dropped to his knees and surrendered.
Human rights groups have long accused the state of allowing a shoot-to-kill culture when Palestinians are involved. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir has been distributing thousands of weapons to Israelis since Hamas's October 7 attack.
If I wouldn't sit here with a gun, our enemies would come and try to kill my daughter, unfortunately. So it's a necessity that we learned that we have to do in the last couple of weeks.
Hundreds of civilian emergency squads are being armed with little training and police oversight. This is one of the busiest streets in Jerusalem, and since October 7, more and more people around here have been carrying automatic weapons. Some people in Israel argue that this will make the country safer, but there are others who say that it will make the country more and more like America.
We know what the consequences from having too much guns, too much weapon around. The right has been riding the terror attacks in order to incite and to inflame for too many years.
The Israeli army is now stressing that its rules dictate not to shoot a person who surrenders.
Don't rush to shoot when the risk lessens. We don't shoot at someone who raises their hands.
A comment that comes far too late for the family of Yuval Kestelman. John Lyons, ABC News, Jerusalem.
Back home now, and the driver of a car that crashed into patrons outside a regional Victorian pub, killing 5 people, has walked free on bail. 66-year-old William Swale was released from prison after being granted bail with a $250,000 guarantee and the condition that he not drive a motor vehicle. Mr Swale has been charged with 14 offences, including 5 counts of culpable driving causing death over the fatal crash in Daylesford last month. He remained silent as he left custody last night. The case is due to return to court in April. Victoria's Environment Protection Authority is looking to the skies to try to prevent industrial fires. Hundreds of drone flights have been monitoring waste and recycling facilities, looking for fire risks before they catch alight. But some locals say more needs to be done.
In an industrial area of Melbourne's outer southeast, there are eyes in the skies.
What are you looking for? So we're looking to be able to detect fire risk.
This drone vision, supplied by the EPA, is part of a summer crackdown on fire risks in waste and recycling facilities.
So things like separation distances between waste stockpiles, the height of stockpiles, whether there's sufficient equipment.
The drone can also check for temperature. Anything white is very hot. Today, this facility gets the all clear. Just a week earlier, locals saw how dangerous industrial fires can be. This fire in a paint factory in Dandenong South covered local suburbs in thick black smoke for hours. WorkSafe is investigating the death of a 57-year-old worker. They say he was decanting a dangerous substance when it ignited.
The clean-up and investigation here will last a while, and so will the impact on residents. Some here are worried about the ongoing health impacts of living near fires and industrial areas like this one.
In nearby Keysborough South, residents live even closer to an industrial area. It doesn't store chemicals and paint, but locals say there is a problem.
So the smell is like rotting flesh.
The EPA is holding a community meeting this weekend to talk about the mystery smell.
What is in the odours? Is it toxic? Is it harmful? And certainly they don't want the odours. We do expect duty holders to monitor their emissions, assess their risks and control their risks.
Monitoring for fires and air pollution. Margaret Paul, ABC News, Melbourne.
And Victorian firefighters have renewed calls for urgent upgrades to the state's firefighting fleet after a pumper broke down while crews battled that deadly blaze in Melbourne's southeast last week. The union says a 20-year-old pumper used to produce firefighting foam malfunctioned at the scene, emitting toxic black smoke while producing only half a tank of foam. One person died and 4 people were injured, including 2 firefighters during the blaze. The union says they also had issues getting a ladder platform, as Dandenong's platform had been sent to Traralgon in eastern Victoria to replace their broken equipment.
We had firefighters injured last week. It's only a matter of time that one of these trucks is going to fail completely and put the community and firefighters at risk. It's very concerning.
Powerful storms in the wake of Cyclone Jasper have battered southeast Queensland for a second day. A 10-year-old girl is in a critical condition after being struck by lightning on the Sunshine Coast, while yesterday a man was found dead near fallen power lines in Brisbane.
A fast-moving storm catching Brisbane drivers on their Friday commute.
A tree fell on me.
Dangerous wind gusts reaching 169 kilometres per hour flipped planes and broke a 70-year-old wind record for Archerfield Airport.
Level of wind gust is comparable to a low-end Category 3 tropical cyclone.
A 30-year-old man died at Murarrie in East Brisbane, found near fallen power lines. The storm only lasted about 5 minutes, but it hit hard on Brisbane's south side. The State Emergency Service received more than 180 calls for help.
I've been here 40 years, 2 floods, 2 major storms, and this was the worst.
Power lines look like skipping ropes, just going around and around and around.
Matt Ross has extensive damage to his property, including his beloved car.
Actually, that's the most shattering part. Yeah, I love this car.
35,000 customers lost power at the height of the storm. Many are still without it today, and the extreme weather is continuing across southeast Queensland, with the region sweltering through a low-intensity heat wave.
It's so hot and the beach is so much nicer, like with the breeze.
Can't beat it, but not going to be out too long. It's way too hot.
Showers and thunderstorms will likely bring some relief across the southeast over the weekend. That'll be much needed for residents on the eastern Darling Downs, where it's expected to be up to 9 degrees hotter than average.
You better be slip, slop, slapping, that's for sure.
The heat wave is expected to continue until Monday. Meg Bolton, ABC News, Brisbane.
Prince Harry has been awarded more than $250,000 in damages after winning his phone hacking lawsuit against a British publishing group. London's High Court found his privacy was breached when the newspapers unlawfully gathered information about him. The Duke of Sussex described the victory as a great day for truth and now wants police to launch a criminal investigation.
Prince Harry's battle against the British press brought him to the High Court. In June, he became the most senior royal in 130 years to sit in the witness box. After a dramatic 7-week trial, the Duke of Sussex won his case against Mirror Group newspapers. His lawyers read a statement on his behalf.
I've been told that slaying dragons will get you burned. But in light of today's victory and the importance of doing what is needed for a free and honest press, it is a worthwhile price to pay.
33 articles were presented to the court. The judge found 15 were obtained by phone hacking or unlawful means. MGN has unreservedly apologised and been ordered to pay more than $260,000. But Prince Harry hopes it doesn't end here.
I respectfully call upon the authorities to do their duty for the British public and to investigate bringing charges against the company and those who have broken the law.
The ruling claims phone hacking at the publisher was widespread and habitual from 1998 onwards, and suggests Piers Morgan, the Daily Mirror's editor for many years, was aware of the illegal practice.
I've never hacked a phone or told anybody else to hack a phone, and nobody has produced any actual evidence to prove that I did.
This ruling is a win for Prince Harry, but his battle against the British press is far from over. He has other cases against 2 separate British publishers before the courts. He'll be hoping for a similar outcome.
The prince's attempt to take down the tabloids will continue to play out before the courts. Isabella Higgins, ABC News, London.
Former Trump lawyer Rudy Giuliani has been ordered to pay more than $220 million to two women he falsely accused of election fraud. A judge had previously found Mr. Giuliani liable of defamation after he claimed the Georgia poll workers helped rig the 2020 election. A jury found they should be compensated for reputational and emotional harm. Mr. Giuliani has vowed to appeal the decision.
I am quite confident when this case gets before a fair tribunal, it'll be reversed so quickly, it'll make your head spin.
A British teenager found safe in southern France after disappearing 6 years ago will soon be on his way home. Alex Batty was just 11 when he vanished with his mother and grandfather and forced to live in a spiritual commune. But he bravely left and spent days walking alone in the wilderness before being found by a delivery driver.
It was on this roadside in the middle of the night that Alex Batty's ordeal came to an end. Rescued by a passing delivery driver who had no idea who his mystery passenger was.
He was walking in the middle of a forest in a remote spot, a 20-minute drive from the nearest village, and that was unusual. There was no explanation for someone to be out walking around there so late.
Alex was just 11 when he was whisked away from his family in England, supposedly on holiday to Spain with his mother and grandfather, but then cut off from any contact. For 6 years they moved around, living in so-called spiritualist communities, most recently in the French Pyrenees.
When his mother suggested that she was thinking of leaving for Finland with him, this young man realised it was time. He decided to leave the place where he was staying with his mother and walked for 4 days and 4 nights.
He was then rescued by the delivery driver, who contacted local police. He also let Alex send a message to his grandmother, his legal guardian in England. It read, "Hello, Grandma, it's me, Alex. I'm in France, Toulouse. I really hope that you receive this message. I love you. I want to come home." French police believe the boy's grandfather died about 6 months ago, and along with British police are trying to piece together what has happened to Alex in the past 6 years.
He's getting well cared for by the French authorities at the moment. They're in Toulouse. We're in close liaison with them and the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, and our priority is to get him back to the UK.
A welcome reunion awaits. Jenny Lavelle, ABC News.
An autopsy has revealed actor Matthew Perry died from the acute effects of the drug ketamine. The 54-year-old was found unresponsive in the pool of his California home in October. People close to the Friends star told investigators he'd been undergoing ketamine infusion therapy, which is used to treat depression and anxiety. The Los Angeles Medical Examiner said Perry also drowned, but it was a secondary factor in his death. There's been a groundswell of support around Australia for Palestinians fleeing Gaza and arriving here on temporary visas. Warehouses are filling up with donations, families are opening their doors, and health professionals are volunteering their time and their skills.
This Palestinian family is moving into their new home in Sydney. Just 2 weeks ago, they barely escaped with their lives from Gaza.
Don't ask me how I'm feeling. I still can't collect my thoughts at this moment. It feels like my head is being crushed.
Ali lost 23 family members in one night. She wants to remain anonymous because she's worried about reprisals against her husband. He's still stuck at the Rafah border with Egypt, waiting for approval from Israeli and Egyptian authorities to cross.
He's an old man, 69, almost 70. None of his children are there. He's all alone. Can you imagine?
Like her, he's one of 860 Palestinians granted Australian visitor visas. But only a fraction of them have been able to get out of Gaza. The ones who have are arriving in Australia with not much more than the clothes on their back.
We're going to get now a big truck coming in, and apparently there's going to be a lot of food.
community groups all over the country have sprung to action.
We're accepting everything from food items, toiletries, bed sheets, donors, clothes.
This warehouse space was donated too.
It's heartening actually to know that there are so many people out there who have responded to our donation drive.
This little girl brought her piggy bank.
You saved all that money for the Gaza kids? Sorry, guys.
Dozens of shelves have already been filled with all kinds of supplies desperately needed by the Palestinians arriving from Gaza. But more than food, clothes, and toiletries, what many of them will need is a place to stay.
With what we've gotten is probably about 15 homes ready to go. So as families come in and housing is needed, then we furnish the property and move them in.
Rabia's charity has already helped Ali and several other families move into fully furnished homes rent-free for up to a year.
Someone who's given us 3 apartments in Villawood, someone who gave us a house in Greenacre, some real estates jumped on board who said, look, whatever you need, we're happy to get. There was another guy who had a house up for lease, gave it to us for half the price.
In Melbourne, more than 400 doctors have signed up to provide free health services to Gazans with no access to Medicare or work rights.
They are broken in many ways. What they've been through is unimaginable. We need to not only address their physical symptoms, such as injuries from war or chronic diseases, we definitely need to address their psychological impacts that they've had.
Despite everyone's efforts, they all agree it won't be enough.
We can only do so much as a community. The government is going to have to step in sooner or later.
A plea for more support for people who never wanted to leave their homeland. Nabila Nashar, ABC News.
Nathan Lyon will have to wait for Pakistan's second innings for his 500th Test wicket after he was left stranded on 499 as the tourists were bowled out for 271. Pakistan's batters didn't throw their wickets away, but they struggled to score as Australia's bowlers eventually ground them down. Leading by 216 runs, the Australian second innings didn't get off to the best of starts, with Warner and Labuschagne both falling.
Pakistan had frustrated Australia's bowlers on day 2 until late wickets paused their momentum. And it took just 3 balls on day 3 for Pat Cummins to strike again to swing the game Australia's way.
Straight through him.
But Pakistan didn't capitulate. Babar Azam showing his class.
Beautifully driven by Babar.
While Imam ul Haq slowly compiled a half-century of 161 balls.
Imam ul Haq, his 9th Test match 50.
The pair looked comfortable until Mitch Marsh was handed the ball.
Edge and gone, and Mitch Marsh.
Sawad Shakil has enjoyed a brilliant start to his Test career, averaging 87 in 13 matches, and he showed no fear against Australia's quicks.
And again, take that.
But Australia's bowlers kept up the pressure and it paid off. Nathan Lyon claiming Test wicket 498.
As he does there, and he's gone.
And then the floodgates threatened to open.
Got him!
What a delivery.
As Pakistan limped to lunch at 6 for 203. The Aussies were enjoying their time in the field, though Stark wasn't having as much fun with the ball. The spearhead struggling for rhythm and eventually leaving the field to apparently review footage. In his absence, Josh Hazlewood and Cummins struck.
Got him, is he? Yes, there's Mukhawaja.
And Lions' hunt for 500 wickets continued, removing Amar Jamal thanks to some quick work from Alex Carey. But he'll have to wait for the milestone. Travis Head claiming Pakistan's 10th wicket as the tourists were bowled out for 271. After his heroics in the first innings, David Warner was looking for a repeat, but he fell for a duck as the tourist bowlers started positively. Tom Wildey, ABC News.
A 10-man Western Sydney Wanderers side has handed Adelaide United its 3rd straight loss of the men's A-League season. Dylan Perez scored in the 23rd minute for his side. It's the first time in 5 games the Wanderers have got on the board in the first half. And in Melbourne, both brothers Ross and John Aloises went head-to-head for the first time in the coach's box. Western United coming away with a 2-1 win against Brisbane to snap a 6-game losing streak. But John Aloisi was forced to watch on from the stands after being given a red card for celebrating a bit too forcefully in the second half.
If I can't show passion in the game, we're trying to promote the game. I'm not swearing at that stage. I've just run onto the field to celebrate a little bit. Okay, probably I could have got sent off before during the game for some of my antics, but not for that.
Melbourne Victory has claimed its fourth win of the Women's A-League season with a 2-0 victory over a depleted Canberra United side. Mackenzie Wynart scored first, getting past keeper Chloe Lincoln. Lincoln was then sent off early in the second half after bringing Victory's Rachel Lowe to ground outside the penalty box. Japanese import Kariya Okino's 57th minute strike then sealed the win. Sydney's Eastern Creek Raceway has played host to Grand Prix and Supercar Championships. But it's not just professionals who are doing hot laps of the circuit. More than 100 people who are blind or vision impaired have taken to the track to let out their inner speed demon.
Have you driven before? Yes, 22 years ago.
2 decades on from his last turn behind the wheel, Roger Ingram is switching his white stick for a gear stick.
Most of the brakes are gentle brakes, and they're sweeping forwards.
He's one of many blind or vision impaired people who've come to this racetrack after being encouraged to get back in the driver's seat.
Turning into a corner, that was a bit scary. Oh, turning where? Left, right, okay, not a problem. The other left, okay.
Driving is one of life's routine activities he misses the most.
That sense of freedom, being able to get out and go, not having to rely on anybody else to do it.
That sense of freedom also being felt by 17-year-old Tyler Jarman.
Probably the most fun I've had since being diagnosed with my brain tumour.
He originally got his L's only for his condition to stop him moving onto his P's.
It makes me feel normal, and I am so proud of my friends, and now I can be like them on this track.
Volunteer driving instructors help guide the dual-operated cars.
It's a huge chance for the vision impaired just to have a go, and I think we should be treated more equally.
For those who weren't so keen on getting into the driver's seat, professional racers took them for a joyride. The event was born out of the organisers' passion for motorsport.
I'm the world's fastest blind man on a motorcycle, and a lot of blind and vision impaired people ask me all the time, Ben, how could I ever ride a bike or how could I ever drive a car? You're so lucky.
We want to be able to stand in front of someone that's losing sight or lost sight and say, hey, we were there, look at what we've done. It's taken a lot, it takes a lot more to live, but you can do it.
Fulfilling a need for speed. Courtney Barrett-Peters, ABC News, Sydney.
Well done, everyone. To the weather, overnight minimums range between 6 and 13 degrees. The lowest of 3 was felt at Mount William and Mount Baw. We had a partly cloudy day with some isolated showers falling on and south of the ranges. Maximum temperatures were 3 to 5 degrees below average. The state's high of 28 was recorded at Mildura. In Melbourne, the temperature reached 22.7 degrees at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Interstate today, a warm and sunny day in Sydney, Brisbane and Darwin. They all had showers, mostly cloudy in Perth, windy and wet in Hobart and mostly sunny in Adelaide. The satellite picture is showing thick cloud over northern Queensland caused by a tropical cyclone Jasper and low-level cloud covering much of the southeast of the country. A high-pressure ridge will stay over the state until Monday when a trough will deepen over the west. Showers and storms for southeast Queensland and northeast New South Wales and wet over WA's eastern parts of South Australia. For the capital cities, partly cloudy in Sydney, Adelaide and Hobart, a possible storm for Brisbane and Darwin and mostly sunny in Perth. Back home, some patchy morning fog in the southwest and then a partly cloudy morning in the south, 27 in Horsham, 30 for Echuca. Clear in the north and then a dry, mild to warm and mostly sunny afternoon throughout the state with mainly light winds, 31 in Shepparton and 22 for Orbost. On the bay, 10 to 15 knot westerlies will shift south to southeasterly and increase up to 20 knots by the late afternoon, waves around 1 metre. For Melbourne, it'll be a sunny Sunday with a top of 24 down to 14 tonight, a high of 24 forecast for Geelong, 26 in Yarra Glen. And looking ahead, Monday, cloudy, 31 degrees. Watch out for that. Tuesday, windy and down to 19. Wednesday, partly cloudy, 20. Thursday and Friday, mostly sunny, 25 and 27. And next Saturday, partly cloudy, 25 degrees. And that's it for this evening's bulletin. Stay well wherever you are. Have a fantastic night. Good night.